coalition attacks on President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, with cabinet secretaries and government come State House spokesman not being political office holders. Jubilee is establishing a political arm called the Secretariat to defend, repulse and shield the government from opposition. By the composition of the Secretariat has put the President's Party, the National Alliance TNA, and his deputies United Republican Party URP on a coalition course. Samogina has the details.
One day after President Uhuru Kenyatta lambasted the CORD coalition for clamoring for a referendum, his deputy William Ruto came to Kwale with an equally blunt message.
There is a nostalgia I'm noticing of the people who voted yes to try and think they can now vote no.
The CORD coalition is seeking to change the country's governance system from presidential to parliamentary, with the argument that the current system leaves the small communities with a numerical disadvantage. The Jubilee Alliance sees this as an attempt to sneak into power through the back door.
And it is time people began to understand that if you lose an election, there is something called next time.
But the CORD coalition has sought to correct that impression. The team was holed up in a secret meeting at a Mombasa hotel, strategizing on how to sell the referendum agenda. Siaya Senator James Orengo eventually came out to defend the coalition's latest maneuver.
The second question of the referendum that we seek to advance is to change the system of government to the extent of accountability. You know, there are those who are saying quite incorrectly that we want to change the electoral process, that we want to deny the country the chance to elect their leaders directly. That is not the question. The question is the question of accountability.
Orengo insisted that the CORD coalition's intentions are good and in the interest of protecting the new constitution.
The national government and even the other governments at the county level needs to be accountable to the people and accountable to the people through the elected legislatures, so that we are not confident that the current framework and structures of the constitution, where the executive exists out of the parliament, enhances accountability.
But Ruto defended Jubilee's commitment to devolution and insisted that governors already have the power to implement the changes they need to be successful in the counties.
We were speaking with one governor who already collects 800 million shillings every month from local sources, local revenue. That is the appropriate use of power.
Since 2002, the country has held a referendum between general elections. The deputy president is, however, questioning the latest push that could see Kenyans lining up again to vote before 2017.
If they had won the election, would they be pushing for a referendum to change the constitution?
The referendum talk is a high-stakes debate that both the CORD and Jubilee coalitions have to win. A win for Jubilee may paint CORD as power-hungry, while a win for CORD may paint Jubilee as anti-reform and anti-devolution. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Kwale.
The Big Q, in association with Nguvu Cement.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. It is Ferdinand Omondi, as he correctly put, and not Samogina, as I earlier mentioned. And that story indeed brings us to the big question tonight. And we ask, do you support Deputy President William Ruto's call to CORD to stop calling for a referendum on presidential elections? Send me a yes or no responses with a short comment to the number 8040, or you can tweet me at James Smart, and I will bring you that poll result and read some of your comments at the end of this live newscast.
Choose Nguvu for undoubted strength.
All right, let's stay with the news. And so the catchphrase in Kenya's political circle has now become the referendum. But what exactly is each group pushing for? And what does it all mean for you? Here's KTN's Ashamwelu with the answers.
To the national government by county bosses in the row of a devolution has now turned into a national debate whether the constitution enacted exactly 3 years ago should be amended in a national referendum. The opinions have come from across the board, and as each day passes, a new dissenting party adds its voice to the referendum debate. Governors want the constitution amended to raise county allocations to 45% of the national budget as opposed to the current 15%.
When I talk about these things, I am not talking as Isaac Ruto because I want anything to do. I am speaking on behalf of the people who live in Machina.
Senators who have seconded the county bosses say a referendum would save devolution. The senators are seeking more power from the constitution, especially on the allocation of revenues to the counties.
If you have a lot of money remaining in the national government, there is no guarantee that that money will be used equitably.
Members of the National Assembly think the Senate is overstepping its mandate. The 11th Parliament has been calling for the complete abolition of the Senate, which would need a referendum.
Hivi tusio personal. Until munasikia sasa hata Senate, nasema National Assembly inapigana na Senate. Ni kwa sababu katiba is not clear.
The CORD coalition, on the other hand, wants the current presidential system under the constitution scrapped and instead a parliamentary system of electing the head of state to be adopted.
Na support referendum ya kwamba wayumbe wachague president, sio wananchi waambiwa kwamba chagueni hii na hii, kwa sababu wanaungana. Imekuwa ni kateli ukola.
The March 4th movement has also thrown its heart into the ring, pushing for a referendum to replace the current system of electing a president with the electoral college system.
What we are proposing is to go the American way, where the aggregation of the popular vote is not done at the national level, but is done at the county level.
The issue of cutting, pasting, and patching of this new constitution is not also in the urgent interests of the common man right now.
Analysts are also warning that this approach in the push for a referendum could turn sour, heightening political and tribal tensions in the country.
Hatutaki hiyo ni mvurutano. Tutaambia mpaka ndio tuzungumze. Ukikataa sasa shauri yao.
Uchaguzi umeisha, hata bado watu hawajapoa, hawajapumua, hawajatulia. Umeanzisha siasa tena ati sijui unataka referendum. Kwani ulikuwa wapi wakati tulikuwa tunapitisha katiba?
However, unlike Kenya's previous constitution, which was gradually mutilated, the drafters of the Kenyan Constitution of 2010 established strong safeguards to deter any rogue political class. For the law to be amended through a referendum, a bill for the amendment has to be first introduced in either the National Assembly or the Senate. A 2/3 majority vote would be needed for the bill to go through. The second option is through a popular initiative. An amendment to the Constitution could be proposed by an initiative signed by at least 1 million registered voters. So while divergent views continue to arise on whether or not to go on a referendum, Kenyans will ultimately have the final say. Ashamwelu, KTN, Nairobi.
Well, certainly a referendum would pit two sides together, and here now is the Jubilee plan on that referendum.
In the face of cold salvos fired at the Jubilee government from impeachment of the president, the referendum, and even the sharp criticism over the performance of President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, the ruling coalition has plotted to set up a central political arm to contain CORD.
Uchaguzi umeisha, hata bado watu hawajapoa, hawajapumua, hawajatulia. Umeanzisha siasa tena ati sijui unataka referendum. Kwani ulikuwa wapi wakati tulikuwa tunapitisha katiba? Yeah? Si walikuwa huko tukipitisha katiba? Walikuwa wamefungwa macho? Kuna lolote walisema? Si wote ndio walikuwa wanasema hii katiba lazima ipite?
But to fortify itself against the opposition is in itself a litmus test to the unity of the Jubilee coalition. Sources indicate that disquiet is bogging down their plan to centralize political command, with URP a reluctant party in the negotiations. The structure of the government's political wing is to be unveiled next week. Nonetheless, sources say a stalemate persists on who is to head the team. URP wants its chairman Francis Ole Kaparo to be chair, but TNA thinks otherwise. TNA Secretary General Onyango Lo, in a statement, said negotiations were going on as one cannot just wake up and appoint a person because they like them. They have to be competent. Others said to be in the team include Presidential Political Advisor Joshua Kutunyi and former State House Political Advisor Nancy Gitau. The political arms brief is to project a unified voice of the Jubilee coalition. The team, branded as the Jubilee Secretariat, is to be headquartered at the former Party of National Unity PNU headquarters in Westlands. Insiders say the Secretariat strategy is to avoid conflicting statements from the Jubilee parties. The team is to shield Uhuru's administration from opposition and also communicate the alliance's policy. Governance issues and policies remain the domain of government and State House spokesperson Manoa Isipisum. A scheduled unveiling of the Secretariat spokesman was put off Thursday to give room for more consensus building. Sources indicated that former Garsen Member of Parliament Danson Mungatana is tipped to be unveiled as Jubilee spokesman. The Secretariat's complete structure is set to be made public Tuesday next week as Jubilee braces to insulate itself from court's verbal attacks.
Lakini sio mambo ya kutisha watu kila siku, oh hii. Hakuna, sisi hatuna nafasi hiyo, hatuna muda huo. Wananchi wamechoka na siasa miaka 10, nenda rudi, tuende kazi.
Samogina, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, let's stick with this referendum issues, and governors have distanced themselves from the latest calls for a referendum by the Code Coalition and the March 4th movement. The governors who met in Nairobi say their quest for a referendum seeks to address the issue of service delivery that has nothing to do with the system of government.
The threat by the Code Coalition and the March 4th movement to call for a referendum to amend the constitution and change the mode of electing the president is only the latest referendum call. And governors who announced their quest for a referendum weeks ago are distancing themselves from the new push for a referendum.
And we would like to persuade others who have other agenda to please wait for another day. Do not attempt to hijack the issues that belong to the ordinary people.
Any other side issues have nothing to do with governance, and we don't support it both as Code and Jubilee.
We would want to plead with the, the people who are championing that other one to please wait for their day.
The governors drawn from the Jubilee and Code coalitions say their push for a referendum has nothing to do with the presidential system of government.
Ours is purely and completely on service delivery to Wanjiku.
In the referendum, the governors will seek to address the powers of the Senate.
In its current form, Senate is weakly anchored and it needs strengthening so that it is the House that protects devolution.
They also want to increase the allocation of revenue to the counties to 45%. 5% of the funds, the governors say, will be utilized at the ward level.
To have a very predictable provision that assures revenue to the counties, so that as we move forward, others do not confuse it with tokenism and situations where some people think you allocate funds to the counties depending on how they behave.
Governors will also be fighting for the power to be in charge of the infrastructure in primary and secondary schools.
We are being told that is a national government function. We are unable to explain that to the people back home. We would like to do that.
As they prepare for the referendum, governors are also set to individually appeal to the Senate over the gazettement of the transfer of functions that denied governors control of, among other things, maintenance of roads and rural electrification. Rita Tinina, KTN.
Police in Uganda investigating Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho over claims that he acquired his degree certificate fraudulently. The CID director in Uganda told KTN that the case was being taken seriously by the department. The case could put the fate of Joho on the line since governors are required to be holders of valid university degrees.
Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho is easily one of the most recognizable names in the list of governors, having been a vocal campaigner in ODM and MP for Kisauni. But now the latest complaint could put his career on the line. According to documents obtained by KTN, the matter is being treated as a serious case. A letter from the Office of the Resident City Commissioner in Kampala of the Council of Higher Education calls for the cancellation of Joho's certificate on the grounds that he did not attend any classes at the Kampala University and that he did not sit any examination for a course in business administration, as his certificate alleges. Investigations into Joho's academic qualifications followed complaints by a Kenyan voter. Uganda's CID Director Grace Akulo confirmed to KTN that investigations were ongoing but accused the university of attempting to stop the probe. The Mombasa governor, through his personal assistant, said he would give a statement on the issue tomorrow, as he has been holding meetings with ODM leaders in the coast.
All right, now tomorrow we have part 2 of this story, where we'll give you details of the paper trail between authorities in Uganda and why the CID there are worried about the turn this case is taking. Do stay with KTN for that. Now, police are here to identify the Kaunda street killers who took the life of an anti-stock theft police officer and his sister-in-law in Nairobi's Central Business District. According to CCTV footage availed to us by the police, there is a possible suspect clad in a dark suit. However, investigations are still underway.
Police believe that this man in a dark suit and white shirt could be one of the assailants of the Kaunda Street twin murder. The grainy CCTV footage does not give much away, evidence that investigators have a Herculean task ahead to find possibly 4 killers. Police say the CCTV cameras inside the jewelry shop show that the unknown assailants first shot Ayub Okinyi in the head. Beatrice Adhiambo then screamed, prompting one of the killers to turn on her, shooting her in the head as well. The 2 gunshots rung loud on Kaunda Street, causing passers-by to scamper for safety. Adhiambo died on the spot while Ayub succumbed to his injuries on Tuesday. The assailants left the jewelry store without stealing anything, meaning they could have been on an execution mission, and Ayub, an anti-stock theft police officer from Gilgil, was the target. The family of Adhiambo and Ayub now allege that they were locked out during the post-mortem, despite the fact that due process dictates that at least one family member should be present in the room. Police have asked members of the public who have any information to come forward and assist with the investigations. Catherine Omwando, KTN.
All right, it's back to the ballot box for voters in Kibwezi West. A vote recount showed that former MP Kalembe Ndile received more votes than the man who was declared the winner in that constituency.
The courts have nullified the Kibwezi elections, and Kibwezi voters will now have to prepare for a by-election. The High Court threw out the election of Kibwezi East MP Patrick Musimba. High Court Judge David Majanja, sitting in Machakos, ruled that there will be a mini poll as opposed to declaring the petitioner in the case Kalembe Ndile as winner. A vote recount conducted during the petition proceedings indicated Kalembe had won the seat, garnering 16,891 votes ahead of Musimba's 16,773 votes.
Kwa maoni yangu, hii judgment kulingana na matarajio yetu haikuwa hivi.
Still on electoral matters, Esther Murugi remains the Member of Parliament for Nyeri Town after a petition filed against her election was thrown out at the Nyeri High Court. Justice Jairus Nga dismissed the case on grounds that the petitioner's lawyer did not have the practicing certificate. The petitioner, Wilson Ginga, had hired Douglas Obongi as his lawyer, but Justice Nga ruled that Obongi had not renewed his practicing certificate by the time of representing Ginga. The petitioner has been ordered to meet the cost of the suit, which amounts to 1 million shillings. Meanwhile, Kathy Diana Kilonzo can serve with relief after High Court Judge Justice Lydia Achode gave orders restraining the Director of Public Prosecutions and the police from arresting her. This means Kathy will not be arrested just yet for at least 2 weeks while the DPP Keriako Tobiko peruses the file before him given by the CID. The DPP, through lawyer Joke Bondari, also undertook not to give the police any instructions to arrest Kathy, and if they did so, she would not be held in custody. Kathy moved to court seeking to stop the DPP and the Inspector General from arresting her, claiming it would violate her rights.
One can say in summary that we brought the orders we were looking for in terms of securing the non-arrest of Counsel Diana Kilonzo, Kathy Kilonzo, until such time as the court will have advised otherwise after 14 days from now.
Wene Kamau reporting for KTN.
The Big Q, in association with Nguvu Cement.
So a reminder of our big question, and tonight we ask you if you support Deputy President Ruto's call to code to stop calling for a referendum on presidential elections. I have some tweets that have come through, and Sitati on Twitter says Ruto is just talking out of fear. We need to go out there and line up again for that referendum. No referendum just to satisfy one individual's political career. We should focus on country development and devolution. That's Philo writing on Twitter. Do send your comments on Twitter and an SMS 8040. I'll be sampling them at the end of this live newscast.
Choose Nguvu for undoubted strength.
Alright, you're watching KTN Prime. Don't go too far because I have plenty more on the other side of the break, including unique cake decorations. We'll be telling you just that on the frontier with Mashuri Makapombe. Welcome back. You're watching KTN Prime. Now, barely a week after operations at the JKIA came to a standstill following a huge inferno, Lucy Mbogo has been appointed the acting managing director for the Kenya Airports Authority. This is outgoing managing director, engineer Stephen Gishuki, proceeds on terminal leave. And as KTN's Sophia Ona reports, efforts continue to ensure all operations return to normal as soon as possible.
After the duty-free shops eviction drama and the devastating fire at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the government immediately moved to overhaul the security structures. And now the Kenya Airports Authority has announced a change at its helm.
During the recruitment process, the board has appointed Ms. Lucy Mbogo as acting managing director to drive leadership with the authority in an acting capacity.
Lucy Mbogo is the General Manager for Marketing and Business Development for the authority, a position she has held for the last 8 years.
We are at 100%, and we're even carrying more passengers than probably we were carrying last year. For instance, in the last few days, we've been carrying between 19,000 and 18,000 passengers per day, and yet last year we were handling around 15,000.
The outgoing MD, engineer Stephen Gishuki, now leaves early ahead of the expiry of his contract this October. He proceeds on what the KAA has termed as terminal leave. And to all passengers who have had to use tent lounges at the JKIA, KAA has promised to, within 3 weeks, convert the JKIA parking garage into a passengers' arrivals hall, while Unit 1 check-in hall will be prepared for use by other airlines. However, in the meantime, Unit 2 departures between gates 8 and 4 will be open for use by Kenya Airways Friday, 16th August. In addition to these plans, KAA says it will set up a temporary terminal within 8 weeks and expedite the completion of Terminal 4 to bring it into partial operation by the end of this year. At the same time, KAA has also announced that the planning and construction process for the Greenfield Terminal is in progress. A terminal which the authority says is the ultimate solution for the positioning of JKIA as an African hub. Sophia Wanuna, KTN.
All right, Nairobi Senator Gideon Mbuvi, also known as Mike Sonko, and the Nairobi women representative Rachel Shebesh were accused in court today of having harassed Sonko's niece while she was in police custody. Meanwhile, Sonko's niece, Paris Ngina Opora, is alleged to have induced Sonko's daughter, Saumu Mbuvi, to expose her private parts for use in pornography. All right, now we take you to Egypt, where fresh violence has left over 500 dead, according to Health Department estimates. Supporters of deposed President Mohamed Morsi have been involved in clashes with the Egyptian military, prompting a declaration of a state of emergency. Here's KTN's Wilson Buru with that story.
Supporters of ousted Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi stormed a government building in Giza just a day after clashes left more than 500 people dead in the latest violence. Muslim Brotherhood members set fire to the building near Cairo, and there were clashes between Brotherhood members and residents in the suburb of Alexandria. The Health Ministry says at least 525 people, including 43 police officers, were killed yesterday and another 3,700 injured when clashes erupted as security forces moved in to break up protests in support of Morsi. The death toll from what is arguably the bloodiest day since the revolution started in the North African country could rise after the Muslim Brotherhood vowed to continue with the protest over the army's overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi in July. US President Barack Obama has strongly condemned the violence and cancelled joint military exercises planned for later this month.
Given the depths of our partnership with Egypt, our national security interests in this pivotal part of the world, and our belief that engagement can support a transition back to a democratically elected civilian government, we've sustained our commitment to Egypt and its people. But while we want to sustain our relationship with Egypt, our traditional cooperation cannot continue as usual when civilians are being killed in the streets and rights are being rolled back. As a result, this morning, we notified the Egyptian government that we are canceling our biannual joint military exercise, which was scheduled for next month. Going forward, I've asked my national security team to assess the implications of the actions taken by the interim government and further steps that we may take as necessary with respect to the U.S.-Egyptian relationship.
The government claims the violence began after protesters violently resisted their peaceful efforts to disperse pro-Morsi sit-ins. Demonstrators, however, said security forces had staged a full-on assault. Wilson Buru, KTN.
Back home, Deputy President William Ruto has surrendered the land that had been at the center of a court battle between him and an internally displaced person, Adrian Muteshi. During the handover, Ruto and Muteshi did not turn up for the ceremony, but instead sent their representatives to oversee the exercise presided over by the police officers from Tarbo Police Station. Earlier, the exercise was delayed by a standoff after the police refused to effect the instructions, claiming that they had not received the court order. But the handover proceeded after both parties signed a printed copy of the court order. Ruto and Muteshi had been embroiled in a legal battle over the ownership of a 100-acre land in Tarbo, that's in Uasin Gishu County.
It's been, for a period of time, it's been going on. But I think he has faith in the courts, and the courts have done what they did. And he's happy, I guess.
Sio maneno ile ya clashes ambayo ilisababisha tupatiane hii shamba. Ni maneno tu ya ununuzi ambayo it was not clear, and because the court has ruled in favor of Muteshi, we are here to comply.
All right, when you think cake, bet the shapes that come to your mind, circular, rectangular, and so forth. But as Mashri Makapombe found out, the frontier in cake decoration has evolved into more creative shapes that range from life-size shoes, baby coats, and laptops. And she brings us this week's episode of The Frontier.
frontier in cake decoration that is taking the baking industry to a whole new level, that of including artistic skills in a rather usual pastry. Martha Mukami is a baker who has been in the industry for 7 years now, but she decided to take a different route in cake decoration.
Designs tumezileta, watu wengi kabisa, mtu anataka ile kitu utapeleka kwa watu, kila mtu, it's out of this world, you know, it's not, you know, people like unique things.
She is not an artist, she says, but gets inspiration from the things she sees daily. And today, her inspiration comes from the easy accessibility of news.
Ukiwa na laptop yako, ukienda hata mashinani, you can watch KTN kwa laptop.
She begins with leveling the cake that will be transformed into a laptop lookalike. Once leveled, she spreads buttercream all over it, while her assistants work on a different kind of icing known as fondant. There is a lot of kneading as they try to get the right texture and colors of what the final product will look like, and rolling to get the right thickness. The cake is then wrapped and the icing trimmed. This is just the base that is expected to hold the keyboard of the laptop. The laptop screen, however, will not be made of cake. More fondant, black in color this time, is kneaded, rolled and wrapped around the board. Meanwhile, Martha and her other assistant start working on the details of the keyboard.
You capture the features, you know, kama ni color.
She may not have the fancy tools to execute her challenge, but she has learned to improvise. The keys are also cut and spread all over the cake as the laptop slowly starts taking shape. Royal icing that is softer and perhaps one that most of us are used to is then prepared for writing the letters on the keys. Martha then uses it to add the details on the keys spread on the cake. From the numbers to letters and even symbols, nothing is left out. It is the screen's turn now, and Martha uses rice paper that is edible to depict the KTN Kiswahili news on air. The screen takes as much work as the cake since the finishing is key. But the laptop cake cannot be complete without the finer details of stickers that some people use to personalize it, or those from manufacturers. It wasn't always this easy, Martha says. Her first challenge to make a cake that looks like a horse almost didn't materialize as the delivery almost killed her dream.
Nikaiunda, but sasa ikanipatia challenges. Wakati wa kubeba nikienda kwa barabara, ile kichwa ikang'oka.
She almost lost hope then, but she thanks her clients' patience and belief in her that made her who she is today. And she didn't look back from that day. Making cakes that were out of the ordinary became her new passion, as even wedding cakes became a new challenge. From gigantic round tower cakes to those depicting families in an interesting way, to bringing out the culture of the couples, Martha keeps going.
Cake is no longer just for birthdays and weddings. These days, every occasion calls for cake. Whether it's a lady who loves fashion, or one who's expecting a baby, or perhaps just to show how digital we've become in Kenya, cake is not just about how good it tastes, it's also about how creatively it's done. Mashirima Kapombe, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, worth noting that Mashirima Kapombe did not bite or eat that cake laptop. Well, a female police officer inspected nursing injuries at Nakuru War Memorial Hospital after a physical fight erupted earlier this evening between her and a member of parliament. According to the inspector, Maria Mutheo, she was on official duty with her male colleague along Kenyatta Avenue in Nakuru, controlling the rush hour traffic when a vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. When she confronted the owner of the car, Bahati MP Kimani Ngunjiri alighted and started physically assaulting and abusing her. Maria says when her male colleague intervened, the MP threatened to hit her even in his presence. Maria also notes that she later ran for her life while the MP ran into the nearest shop and locked himself in. However, the MP Kimani Ngunjiri defended himself, saying that he hit the police officer in defense. Maria was rushed to the hospital by fellow officers and is currently undergoing treatment.
Later, Highland is the MP Bahati.
Kwa hivyo nipigwa kama nimenyamaza? Nimejipiga mimi mwenyewe? Mimi si kujipiga. No, you are defending yourself. Yes, of course. Na hiyo haikuishi hapa, na mimi siwezi kutoa pesa ya kuonga mtu. I can't do that. Sikazi fanya hiyo. Wanaharasi watu tauni mzima, wanaharasi watu ya matatu, wameweka bei yao juu, wanataka kuhongwa kila saa.
Nimeshuhudia Mheshimiwa Kimani Wangojiri akipiga askari. Amekuja akapaki gari kwenye roundabout. Akaambiwa na askari ambaye ni mwanamke kwamba amefanya makosa na kwamba atachukuliwa hatua. Alipoambiwa hivyo, akaanza kumtusi yule askari. Kisha akamuita malaya, ndio akataka kumpiga. Alipokataza na askari mwanaume, akachukua rungu ya askari mwanaume na kumchapa nayo kwa kichwa.
Well, that's the happenings in Nakuru. But just to check some of the responses on the big question tonight, and we asked you if you support Deputy President William Ruto's appeal to court to stop the referendum push. It is just how some of you are texting in. Says Abogen Kisumu, yes, we are tired of endless, meaningless politics. Let these busybodies let us think and do development for a change. Shame on them. They were at bombers and should have addressed their concerns there. Yes, Ruto is right. Where were they when we passed the constitution? That's
even the best of graduates still lack the necessary skills needed to be able to work without extra training. Mobile service provider Safaricom has struck a deal with the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology to try and curb this. Adele Changole has the story.
The scarcity of specialized equipment in Kenyan universities has long been cited as the reason why Kenya's graduates lack crucial technical skills required in the workplace. But telecom operator Safaricom has now moved in to bridge the gap, donating mini GCM network equipment worth 80 million shillings to JKUAT that will allow students acquire practical telecommunication skills for application in the industry.
We do apologize for the sound hitch in that particular clip, but moving on, Dr. Susan Mboya Kidero has been appointed president of the Coca-Cola Africa Foundation effective immediately. Dr. Mboya Kidero, who currently serves as Coca-Cola's group director for women's economic empowerment for Eurasia and Africa, will now also oversee the operations of the foundation across North, West, Central, East and Southern Africa. In her new role, she will be expected to partner with the local and international leaders, among them NGOs, government agencies and women empowerment and community development organizations, along with Coca-Cola's bottling partners, to secure resources to drive initiatives that accelerate the foundation's programs. Dr. Mboya Kidero's credential is a powerhouse in the country's corporate circles and is unquestionable, and is among only 3 women chair ladies of listed companies on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Right, we'd like to revisit the story we did earlier about Safaricom and the number of students, Kenyans rather, graduating from universities offering training in technology and engineering has continued to be on the rise. However, employers have been complaining that even the best of graduates still lack the necessary skills needed to be able to work without any extra training. Mobile service provider Safaricom has struck a deal with Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture, Science and Technology to try and curb this. Adele Changole has that report.
The scarcity of specialized equipment in Kenyan universities has long been cited as the reason why Kenya's graduates lack crucial technical skills required in the workplace. But telecom operator Safaricom has now moved in to bridge the gap, donating mini GCM network equipment worth 80 million shillings to JKUAT that will allow students acquire practical telecommunication skills for application in the industry.
The new facility, as you all know, will highly enrich our training by exposing the students to modern telecommunication technology, which will make the students highly competitive in the job market.
Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore says the donation is part of the firm's efforts to prepare students for the workplace and also nurture a creative and innovative environment that will spur the next generation of entrepreneurs.
We want to create a country which the rest of Africa and beyond look at and admire.
The telecommunications lab will allow students to initiate and terminate phone calls, enable data transfer, and carry out all services Safaricom is capable of making. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business Today.
Internet penetration rises with millions of users having to access vast content on the cyberspace. Online shopping is fast gaining popularity. But can these online classified businesses be trusted, or are they free from fraud? KTN's Joy Doreen Bira explores.
A recent survey by MasterCard showed that 71% of Kenyans are satisfied with the online shopping experience as the middle class embrace the positive attributes associated with technology.
Post a free ad, click on it.
For instance, OLX Kenya, an online classifieds business, is one of the most searched websites, boasting of thousands of users daily visiting the site.
We put that responsibility of understanding whether the product is genuine enough according to the advert they saw to the buyer.
Normally, an online transaction involves a buyer visiting a website, looking at prices of products of choice on the catalog and deciding whether or not to purchase. While some online users are enjoying the services offered online, a good number have fallen prey to increased cyber fraud, placing e-commerce businesses to task to verify their purchase orders.
Our market is a bit distrusting. You don't know exactly whether somebody is giving you exactly what they are placing online.
The current Kenyan online shops face a challenge of verifying the originality and quality of products sold to the buyers, as the final transaction is conducted between the buyer and seller with a deliberate hands-off detachment by the initiators of the purchase. As online shopping makes its way into the Kenyan market, more and more Kenyans still have reservations on why they do not shop online. For instance, when you physically walk into a shop, you're able to look at the price, look at the physical appearance of what you want to buy, try it on, and then purchase it, or maybe even bargain or negotiate the price for it. And this is something that the online shopping doesn't give most Kenyans. Joy Doreen Bira, KTN Business Today.
Right, for many Kenyan tea farmers, they had to contend with poor prices as they had to sell their wares raw to exporters. Now, gone are those days, and tea farmers in the Nyeri County are now blending tea themselves and selling directly to European markets. Our reporter Philip Keitani spent some time with these farmers and brings us this report.
A bright future beckons for tea farmers in area in Nyeri County as stakeholders implement strategies to enhance value addition on their tea exports. After years of exploitation by middlemen and poor prices, farmers in Iriaini decided to find a way that will guarantee them of a fixed price for their tea.
Whatever we are doing in terms of value addition for the local market, I find that the cost of packaging material is about 40%. And this is actually drawing us so much behind.
Bei ya chai ijapokuwa imekuwa ndogo katikati ya sasa na miaka 5, tunaona imeanza kuwa nzuri.
With over 6,000 smallholder farmers, Iriaini tea is a single garden product where farmers grow tea, and now business is booming in the region.
We have packed teas at source. We lock in the quality and be able to get the teas to the consumer at very top quality.
The farmers have set up a packaging plant, which has seen them also venture into other projects, such as construction of leaf collection centers, beekeeping, cultivation of passion fruits and tomatoes. This move by farmers now brings to an end the losses that Kenya has been incurring in local and global markets to countries with enriched commodities, as their tea earns some space on Mark and Spencer shelves in the United Kingdom with a bold Mount Kenya tea on its packaging. For many years, Kenyan tea and coffee has been used to blend other beverages from across the world because of its high quality, denying farmers that much needed revenue. But farmers here have decided to take another another path and add value to their own product in order to maximize on that revenue that have been missing over the years. Philip Keita reporting for KTN from Iriaini, Nyeri County.
A long overdue step, if you ask me. Airtel Kenya has initiated a new round of price wars with a new offer to make calls at 2 shillings across all networks. Riding on its Airtel Money platform, subscribers will enjoy new low calling rates once they transact any amount above 100 shillings. The offer will be valid for 7 days, upon which a subscriber could renew the transaction again. This comes as mobile operators struggle to make much money from the voice tariff, and move to lower rates is one of the tools to lure new customers in their brackets. Right, here's a look at how your money has been working for you on the Financial Markets Review, coming up next.